The first thing you notice isn't the cold. It's the silence, a heavy, pressurized weight that feels like it's trying to push its way into your ear canals. In the world above, your name is a ghost story told by central bankers and intelligence directors, a placeholder for the man who managed to devalue the euro by 12% in a single Tuesday afternoon without ever leaving a cafe in Prague. But here, in the bowels of the Obsidian, a black site detention facility carved into the tectonic plates 3 miles beneath the Alaskan permafrost, you are merely inmate 001. You sit on a stool that is cold to the touch, bolted to a floor made of reinforced carbon fiber composite, and you stare at the wall of your cell. It isn't made of bars. Bars are a relic of a primitive age. Instead, your world is bounded by a sheet of transparent aluminum, a substance 3 times the density of steel and pulsed with a high-frequency electromagnetic field. If you were to touch it, the vibration would liquefy the soft tissue of your fingertips before your brain could even register the pain. To the warden, a man named Sterling, who views the human soul as a variable in a security equation, you are a neutralized asset. He watches you through a 4,000 feed in a control room 5 levels up, satisfied by your stillness. He has read your file 1,000 times. The architect of the Shadow Network, the man who hacked the unhackable. He thinks your power was stripped away the moment they took your encrypted laptop and replaced it with an orange jumpsuit. He is wrong. He forgets that you didn't become the world's most dangerous criminal because you knew how to code. You became it because you knew how to look at a system, any system, whether it's a global bank or a subterranean prison, and find the one place where it is fighting against itself. For 1,095 days, you have been a masterpiece of psychological submission. You have given them nothing to fear. You wake at exactly 6 o'clock, stimulated by a gradual increase in the LED spectrum of your ceiling lights. You perform 500 push-ups, your sweat hitting the floor in the same rhythmic pattern every morning. You eat the nutrient-rich paste they provide at 12 o'clock and 18:00. You have turned yourself into a piece of background noise for the facility as eye-driven security monitors. By becoming perfectly predictable, you have effectively removed yourself from the threat assessment algorithm. The AI sees you as a low-variance entity, like a piece of furniture or a structural pillar. Once the system stops expecting you to do something, you have the ultimate freedom. You have the freedom to do anything. But the silence is where the work happens. While Sterling watches your body, you have been listening to the prison's pulse. You have learned that every system, no matter how advanced, has a rhythm. You have memorized the vibration of the liquid nitrogen cooling pumps that run behind your cell walls, keeping the facility's supercomputers from melting down. You have learned that at 3 o'clock every Tuesday, there is a microfluctuation in the power grid as the geothermal turbines switch from the primary to the secondary rotors. And most importantly, you have learned about Officer Holloway. Holloway is a veteran, a man with a mortgage, 2 kids, and a nagging, dry cough that he hides from the medical staff because he can't afford the forced leave. For a year, you didn't speak to him. You simply existed in his peripheral vision. Then you began to engineer him. You didn't offer him money. Bribing a guard in Sector 0 is a fool's errand. Instead, you gave him predictability. You made his shift the easiest 8 hours of his life. You became the one inmate he didn't have to worry about. And then, during a routine air filtration maintenance cycle, you whispered a single sentence to him as he stood outside your transparent wall. You told him that the magnesium-based cleaning agents the contractors used were reacting with the ionizing filters, causing his bronchitis. You gave him a breathing exercise. You became a resource. You didn't break him. You integrated yourself into his survival instinct. Now, when Holloway looks at your cell, he doesn't see a monster. He sees the only thing in this 3-mile hole that makes his life easier. The physical components of your escape have been hidden in plain sight for 3 years. Every day, when you are allowed your hygiene kit, a single plastic razor, and a bar of lye-based soap you are working. You saved the microscopic shavings of the plastic. You scraped the salt from your meals. You used the condensation from your sink to create a crude, conductive polymer paste, using a thread pulled from your jumpsuit and your own blood as a binding agent. You spent 1,000 nights painting a circuit onto the back of your toilet, hidden in the 1-inch blind spot that the wide-angle camera lens cannot resolve. This circuit isn't connected to a battery. It doesn't have a power source. It is waiting for the sun. You aren't a magician. You're a physicist of opportunity. You knew that the Earth was entering a period of solar maximum, and through the astronomical journals you requested from the library, you tracked the arrival of a massive X-class solar flare. You knew that when that flare hit the atmosphere, it would create a geomagnetic surge. In the world above, it might cause some satellite interference or a beautiful aurora. But down here, 3 miles deep, in a facility shielded by lead-lined concrete, it would create a tiny, infinitesimal Hall effect in any unshielded conductive material. At exactly 14 o'clock, the sun speaks. You sit on your stool, your hands in your lap, watching the air. The lights in your cell don't flicker. They are too well shielded for that. But behind your toilet, the lie-in plastic circuit you painted catches the geomagnetic pulse. It generates a tiny spike of electricity, less than a millivolt, but it is positioned directly over the thermal sensor for the liquid nitrogen cooling loop. The sensor, designed to be hypersensitive, sees a massive heat spike. It thinks the server room is about to go critical. The automated safety protocols, which prioritize the survival of the facility's data over everything else, react with binary coldness. The valves open. The sound is a dull, metallic thud deep within the wall. The sudden pressure change in the pipes causes a water hammer effect. The pipes, which you have been subtly weakening for months by applying your caustic soap paste to the concrete joints, finally fail. Supercooled liquid nitrogen at minus 320 degrees Fahrenheit sprays into the crawl space behind your cell. The reinforced concrete, which can withstand a bunker buster bomb, cannot withstand thermal shock. The lead lining becomes brittle. The concrete begins to crack with a sound like 100 pistol shots. This is the moment where the mastermind becomes a predator. You don't wait for the alarms. You wrap your jumpsuit around your shoulder and charge the corner of the wall. The concrete, now as fragile as glass, shatters. You fall through the hole into the interstitial space, the 2-foot-wide service gap between the cell blocks. It is a nightmare of white fog and biting cold. If you breathe too much of the nitrogen, you'll pass out from hypoxia in seconds. You pull your shirt over your nose and mouth, moving with a desperate animal speed that your AI monitors never thought you possessed. You aren't running toward the surface. That is the mistake an amateur would make. The elevators are already locked down, and the stairwells are being flooded with neuroparalytic gas. Instead, you go toward the heart of the beast, the primary server room. You navigate the dark crawl spaces by the memory of the vibrations you felt for 3 years. You know the layout better than the architects because you've lived in its shadow. You reach the server room's intake grate and look down. The room is a forest of black towers, glowing with blue LEDs. The floor is weight censored, and the air is monitored for carbon dioxide. You don't step on the floor. You reach into your jumpsuit and pull out 2 small, magnetic pucks you fashioned from the speakers of your cell's intercom, the ones you've been repairing for months. You toss them at the fire suppression pipes in the ceiling. They click into place. Using a length of braided thread from your jumpsuit, you swing across the room like a ghost, landing directly on the master console, the only surface in the room not wired into the weight plate grid. Your fingers move across the keys with a muscle memory that feels like coming home. You don't try to hack You don't try to steal money. You have a much simpler goal. You activate Protocol Leviathan. It is a safety feature, a dead man's switch, designed to prevent the prisoners from being buried alive in the event of a total facility collapse. When Leviathan is triggered, every electromagnetic lock in the prison is disengaged, and all personnel are ordered to the surface for emergency extraction. To trigger it, you need the warden's voice. You open the facility's audio logs and find a recording of Sterling's weekly address. You use a basic voice mask script to synthesize his vocal patterns. Within seconds, the intercom system across all 18 levels of the Obsidian blares with a synthesized version of Sterling's voice. Code Red. Protocol Leviathan. Full evacuation. This is not a drill. The click of 10,000 locks opening simultaneously is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. Above you, you hear the muffled sounds of shouting and running boots. The guards aren't looking for an escapee. They are terrified of being trapped in a collapsing mountain. In the chaos, you slip out of the server room and head downward. You aren't going to the surface. You are going to the waste disposal sector. This is the most dangerous part of the plan. Sector 0's trash is compressed into high-density cubes and loaded onto an automated rail car that travels 20 miles through a pressurized tunnel to a recycling facility in a nearby Alaskan town. The compression process involves a hydraulic press that exerts 12 tons of force. You climb into the hopper, burying yourself beneath a mountain of shredded documents and discarded medical supplies. You find the hydraulic piston and jam a steel rod salvaged from the server rack into its primary housing. As the trash is loaded on top of you, the air becomes tight. The smell of ink and antiseptic is overwhelming. You feel the hopper move. You feel the hydraulic press begin to descend. It hits the steel rod with a jarring clack. The machine, sensing an obstruction, assumes the bale is at maximum density. It stops 2 inches above your skull. The robotic arms wrap the trash and you in high-tensile wire and eject the bale onto the rail car. The journey is a 20-mile descent into a different kind of darkness. The rail car moves at 80 miles per hour through a vacuum-sealed tube. The pressure changes make your ears bleed. The cold is a physical weight, pressing against your ribs. You spend those 20 miles in a state of hyperfocus, slowing your heart rate, fighting the urge to scream as the wire bites into your legs. You are no longer inmate 001. You are a piece of cargo. You are a glitch in the world's logistics. When the car finally slows, you hear the hiss of the vacuum seal breaking. The bale is dumped onto a conveyor belt in a massive, dimly lit warehouse. You feel the rhythmic thump-thump of the belt. You wait until you hear the sound of the warehouse's heavy machinery, the roar of a furnace or the whine of a sorter to mask your movements. You use a shard of glass you web, and holding in your palm to slice through the wire and the plastic. You roll off the belt and hit the concrete floor, every joint in your body screaming in protest. You are in a recycling center on the outskirts of a town called Barrow. It is 4 o'clock. The warehouse is staffed by 3 sleepy workers who are more interested in their coffee than the trash on the belt. You slip out of the loading dock and into the Alaskan night. The air is so cold it feels like breathing needles, but it is the sweetest air you have ever tasted. You don't run. Running attracts attention. You walk with a calm, steady pace toward the town. You find a row of lockers at a local trailhead. You use a piece of wire to pop a lock and find a heavy parka, a pair of boots, and a knit cap. You are now just another face in the coldest town in America. Back at the Obsidian, the chaos is beginning to settle. Warden Sterling stands in your cell, staring at the shattered wall and the lye-painted circuit behind your toilet. He realizes now that he never had you. He realized that while he was playing a game of security, you were playing a game of physics and psychology. He checks his private servers and finds a single message waiting for him on his screen. It isn't a threat. It isn't a confession. It is simply a live feed of his own daughter's bedroom in London, filmed through her webcam. The message below it reads, "I was never in your prison, Sterling. You were in mine. I've just decided to let you out. The final scene of your escape doesn't happen at a border crossing or on a private jet. It happens in a small, wood-paneled diner on the edge of the tundra. You sit at the counter, your hands wrapped around a mug of black coffee. The steam rises in the cold air, smelling of burnt beans and hope. On the television mounted above the grill, your face appears. The news anchor is breathless, her voice trembling as she announces that the world's most dangerous criminal has vanished from the most secure facility on Earth. She lists your crimes. She talks about the global threat you represent. The man sitting next to you, a truck driver with a tired face and grease under his fingernails, looks at the TV and then looks at you. You don't flinch. You don't look away. You give him a tired, polite nod. Crazy world, the driver says, gesturing toward the screen. How does a guy like that just disappear? You take a sip of your coffee, feeling the heat spread through your chest, thawing out the last 3 years of ice. He didn't disappear, you say quietly. The system just stopped looking for him. The driver grunts in agreement and goes back to his eggs. You finish your coffee, leave a $5 bill on the counter, and walk out the door. The sun is beginning to rise, a pale, cold orb on the horizon. You look up at it, the same sun that triggered your circuit, the same sun that governs the rhythm of the world. You aren't a criminal anymore. You are an inmate 001. You are the man who learned that the world is just a collection of systems, and that every system has a door if only you have the patience to find the key. You step into the snow, and by the time the next news cycle begins, you are gone. A ghost in a world that still hasn't realized the locks have been changed. You are free. But more importantly, you are a reminder. A reminder that no matter how deep you bury the truth, or how many layers of steel and code you wrap it in, the human mind is the one variable that can never be neutralized. You walk toward the horizon, not as a king of the underworld, but as a man who knows that the greatest escape isn't leaving a prison. It's realizing that the prison was only ever as strong as your belief in it. And you? You don't believe in anything anymore, except the next move.